Welcome to Stansberry Radio. I'm Aaron Brabham. Porter's out this week, so I'm flying solo. We have a great guest lined up for today. Keep sending us your thoughts on the show. Email us at feedback@stansberryradio.com. Joining us is Gerald Celente. Gerald is the founder of the Trends Research Institute that publishes the Trends Journal. He describes himself as a political atheist and citizen of the world. He's appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show, The Today Show, Good Morning America, and Alex Jones Show, just to name a few. Gerald, welcome to Stansberry Radio.
Oh, thanks for having me, Aaron.
Hey, no problem. So the first question I'd like to know is, what motivated you to become a trend forecaster? How did you get into this?
Oh, it's a long story. It began with my father, may his dear soul rest in peace. When I was a young man and be driving along and I'd be shooting my mouth off, he'd look over at me and in Italian he would say, "Pappagallo, parrot, stop repeating what everybody else is saying and think for yourself." And so I respected my elders, and I had great aunts and uncles, and I knew that they knew more than me. So before I would say anything, I always made sure I knew what I was talking about. And then I was at a graduate school, and I used to run political campaigns in Westchester County in New York. And they sent me up to Albany. I was the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate. And I got to see politics firsthand, and that began my career as becoming a political atheist. It was a disgusting job watching grown men grovel all day long to suck their way up to the top.
That's right.
And then I was in D.C. for many years as a government affairs specialist. And I'll never forget, Jimmy Carter came back from Iran and told the American people that the Shah was the island of stability in the Middle East. And I've been following this for years. You know, I knew how the CIA and the MI6 overthrew the democratically elected government of Mossadegh in 1953. He had the nerve, by the way, to nationalize the oil. Could you imagine that?
Yeah, wow, shocking.
Yeah, and you know who the company was? Anglo-Iranian, BP today.
Mm-hmm.
And Standard Oil. Anyway, and I knew about the Savak, the secret police. What a brutal dictatorship the Shah's regime was. So when the revolution began to happen, I knew it was real. And then that was the point I became a political atheist, because I knew this thing was going to collapse, and so did everybody else that had a half a brain. Yeah, I mean, you got millions of people on the streets. You know, this thing isn't looking good. So what happened, then I said to myself, what will be the implications of this? And I realized that gold and oil prices would go up. And I started trading gold and oil, not knowing what I was doing. I was a young guy. And I made enough money to quit my job. And I realized that current events form future trends. And if you could look at them without putting an emotion into it, what you like, what you don't like, it's not what's optimistic or pessimistic. It's what is. It's a diagnosis. And that's what I do. I diagnose the news each day from around the world, and that's what we do at the Trends Research Institute, and that's what the Trends Journal is all about.
So you founded the Trends Research Institute in 1980. Since then, you've successfully forecasted, just amongst a few of the things, the 1987 stock market crash, the dot-com bust, the beginning of the gold bull run, the 2001 recession, the real estate bubble, the panic of '08, and the coming greatest depression. What's your big forecast? What's the number one thing that you're forecasting for 2012?
You know, one of the things with trend forecasting is timing. And right now the timing is not clear for us for a variety of reasons. We would have believed that we would have seen a collapse already of another financial crisis. In our wildest imagination, you'd never know what schemes undreamed of they're going to pick. So we would have said this year a euro crisis. It's not going away. You can't fix it by dumping more money on it, but yet they do it. What did they do at the end of the last year? They dumped in 1.2 trillion euros to give to banks at virtually interest-free loans. So that forestalls the crash. But that's what we're looking at. We're looking at more riots worldwide. We're looking at a declining U.S. economy, again, only being held up by low interest rates. And it's a complete repeat, by the way, of when we made the forecast for the Great Recession in 2004, We said it would happen in 2007, and it did. It happened in late 2007 because of the low interest rates, 46-year lows. So they're creating another bubble. When are we going to go to a war with Iran? We don't know. But we know it's happening, and we're preparing for it because, in fact, the United States and Europe have declared a war against Iran. It's an embargo. It's a reverse of what the United States did to Japan back in the preceding World War II. They cut off Japan from getting natural resources. The Japanese were undercutting the Americans, and people in the Netherlands, the UK, in the marketplace, in trade. So they cut them off from product. And now what they're doing to Iran is they're cutting them off from selling their product. So it's in effect, it's a state of war. Which one's going to happen first? We don't know, but we believe they're all going to happen. The date is difficult. And as far as the presidential elections go, it's the presidential reality show. What self-respecting adult could look up, in my belief, again, my motto that was taught to me by my father, think for yourself. I look at these guys, it's a cavalcade of clown. You know, when you see the front runners, Romney, Santorum, and Obama, it's the Three Stooges to me. This isn't going to be an election of voting for a lesser of two evil. It's going to be voting for a greater of a stooge. I mean, that's all it is to me. This is Democratic and Republicans, Bananas, Gallows. What's the difference? You know, Lansky, Schultz, Republicans, Democrats. It's a crime syndicate. And I say that not lightly, considering what they've done to this country and how we're talking about the economy and how they're raping it right in front of our eyes. So, and then, of course, all of these acts that have been passed, I believe, have been put in place because they know that the economy is collapsing, and they're going to keep the natives that are restless in check with the passage of the National Defense Authorization Act, with the signing a few weeks ago of an executive order that gives El Presidente los Estados Unidos the supreme right to declare martial law under a, quote, potential threat. I ask you, Aaron, when does potential end? Potential is forever. And how about that other one, that big brobe just passed, our Attorney General, to sign a new guideline? They're listening to us right now. They're watching every stroke of your computer keyboard. They're listening to every conversation that you're having. And now it's legal. And how about that Supreme Court? That's right, ladies. Spread those legs. Bend over, guys, because now if you get caught for a seatbelt violation, maybe having a drink too much, and they throw you in the can, they could look up your can. That's right. Read the latest Supreme Court ruling. Invasive strip searches. This is America. It's the USSA. This isn't communism, as people say. It's fascism, the merger of state and corporate powers, and we've been merged. We've been merged with the bailouts. We've been merged with the buyouts. We've been merged with the rescue plans. This isn't a free country anymore, and I fear for what's going to happen in the future.
And by the way, we agree with you on everything. We're political atheists ourselves. We actually, on Stansbury Radio, have started a national scumbag registry where we nominate elected officials, and we believe that Democrats and Republicans are equally as offensive to America as any other party. And look, Congress has a 6% approval rating right now. I mean, come on, it's a joke. By the way, speaking of the these executive orders and legislation being passed like at the midnight hour, there was a Senate Bill 1813, which is called the Highway Trust Fund, that was just passed by the Senate, where if you owe the IRS $50,000 or more, the State Department can refuse to issue, renew, or revoke the passport of a U.S. citizen. Hasn't gone through the House yet. I imagine it'll pass, and that'll be another one of the liberties taken away from you.
You know, and I love it, too. You know, when you tell people, you go down the list of lies and backtracks from Obama, and especially women, they'll say, oh, I like Obama. Oh, yeah, you should really like him now because it was the U.S. that pushed through this. They were very strong proponents of this latest strip search legislation and plus all the other things. So, again, you know, to me, It's what I'm doing in this election and what we're pushing for at the Trends Research Institute and the Trends Journal is a voters' strike. And as I said, what self-respecting person would vote for a lesser of two evils or a greater of two stooges? And if I believe if 40% or less of the people vote, we could call this an illegitimate election. We have a gang of 535 congressmen and senators telling us how to tie our shoes. Who made this crap up? I mean, really, if one of these guys came over to me face to face and started laying their jive on me, it wouldn't last long. I don't, everybody, let's have a little respect over here and stop telling me that I have to live by what you believe. I thought this was a democracy. It's not even close. So what I'm calling for is a voters' strike.
I like the idea of the voters' strike 100% because I'm not going to vote, and I know Porter's not going to vote, and I recommend that highly. I would love to have the 40% or below no vote go through. What are your thoughts? I'm not sure if you've seen Porter's End of America thesis, but basically it's a video that's been viewed over 22 million times.
Wow.
And essentially what we talk about is it's not the end of America as we know it, but it's the end of the U.S. dollar being the world's reserve currency status. I know that you've talked about this in a few interviews. There are some bilateral agreements going on with countries, Russia and China, to trade. China recently, or actually they're talking with Saudi Arabia right now to have a bilateral agreement where they have direct shipping and transportation of oil directly to them, and they're probably not going to trade in petrodollars. Do you see the U.S. losing its world reserve currency status? And if so, when do you think that might happen?
Of course I see it ending. And again, the BRIC nations also talking about putting their own bank together and considering their growth and trajectory and future growth, it looks highly probable. Because this isn't only a decline of the American dollar, it's a decline of Empire America. And this is classic, with fighting in foreign entanglements. It's not even pillage and plunder, it's just pillage. Or just plunder, rather, and no pillage to bring home. And just draining the treasury. And you look at virtually everything that the government does, the huge amount of debt. Did everyone forget that the U.S. had its debt rating downgraded in August of 2011? And it's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. When will it happen? I think that they're going to do a lot of things to try to hold it together until after the election. That's my prognosis. Mm-hmm. And also, however, events have a way of taking their own turn. By the way, if there's one person responsible, or two people, or two bodies responsible, for the high gasoline prices, and you could read it anywhere by virtually every analysis, because this is global. It's not only the U.S. It's not about refining capacity. The reason that we're all paying so much for gasoline is that President Obama and the Senate passed 100-0, and President Obama signed, as part of the National Defense Authorization Act, these draconian sanctions against Iran. And this is causing an oil price spike. So if there's anybody responsible for this, it's them. And I'm mentioning this because I'm saying, when will it happen? When will the reserve currency happen? And you mentioned about the petrodollars, and also understanding that petrodollars, that was invented around the early 70s. Is that correct?
That's right.
So this is all coming to an end right now. Because let's go back to the Bretton Woods Agreement when the dollar did become the reserve currency, just near the end of World War II, and then 1970, 71, 72, when the petrodollar scheme came in. There was no China. China was Mao Zedong. China was behind the bamboo curtain.
They were communist.
That's right. There was no Russia in the deal. All of Eastern Europe, from Berlin over to the end of Russia, was all behind the Iron Curtain. India? Nobody knew anything about India other than maybe a couple of Gandhi stories. So this is a whole different world now. America is not the same place it used to be. And when you look at the decline going on in this country, how could anybody believe that the dollar is going to be a reserve currency is beyond me. It may be one of the basket of currencies. And oddly enough, Zolnik, the head of the